Hi everyone, Krzysztof the Polish Geek, and welcome to the first movie review of 2026. I already done a couple of videos, like the review of Knights of the Old Republic, as well as my best and worst movies of 2025, and even pretty recently I did two recent videos of 2026 things, like first two episodes of Season 3 of Primal, and then the very first episode of Night of the Seven Kingdoms and One Nature Adventure video. Yeah, I already done quite a lot of videos this year, even though it's only the beginning, but yeah, I don't think I've done a single new movie release yet, until right now. So yes, technically, welcome to the first official movie review of 2026, and I'm gonna review 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, which is a sequel to 28 Years Later, the movie that came out only 6 months ago, and that movie was pretty divisive. There are plenty of people who didn't really like it because clearly they expected a lot more zombie outbreaks and action, but I was one of those actually thought it was the best movie in the series, because the reason I liked it is because I like how it was much more character driven, more like character focus. I like how it focused more on character development, and that's why it was actually my favorite movie in this series. And what I think of this one? Well, if you're expecting that this one is now gonna have more zombie chases and all that, then this is absolutely not a movie for you. In fact, there are barely any zombies in this movie. I mean, we do learn a lot more about the infected, and they're actually referred to as the infected more than zombies. And yes, we do learn a lot of information about them and all that, but yes, there aren't really any chases by zombies or anything like that. It very much in that way is similar to the first movie. There are also plenty of differences between the Bone Temple and the movie from 6 months ago, but yes, when it comes to zombies, it's very similar in that there are not many zombies here. In fact, on screen we actually have a lot less zombies here than we have in the previous movie. Like, again, there is literally only one zombie character, and that's Samson, and we'll get to it soon, but yes. And so, the movie starts where the previous one left off, and Spike, as we remember, got captured by a gang of Jimmys, and now he gets initiated into this gang and becomes a member, although it's clear right away that he doesn't really enjoy being in it, and he just seeks any situation where he can abandon this gang. But it's also what could actually be a problem for many people. It was really for me, because I found The Bone Temple really enjoyable, and I actually think I might even like it more than 28 Years Later, which says a lot, because again, 28 Years Later was my favorite movie in the series so far, but I actually think that The Bone Temple now might have dethroned it. Now The Bone Temple is possibly my favorite one, but yes, that's my one single but tiny issue with the movie, but I actually think it makes perfect sense, the story context, so I can excuse it. But it's the minute Spike joins the cult of Jimmy's, that's actually when it feels like story kind of doesn't focus much on him. Instead, it focuses mostly on the cult, and especially the cult leader, played brilliantly by Jack O'Connell actually. But yes, the story focuses more, when it focuses on the Jimmys, it focuses more on the cult leader than Spike. Well, Spike, it seems, mostly being relegated to like just being there and going along and playing along because he's being in a tough spot, but not really doing much actually. Like, again, in the previous movie he was the main character, but here it feels like, again, he's been relegated to a silent role of just like basically playing along because of the tough situation he's in. But again, as I said, story-wise, I actually think it's kind of justified. But again, I really like the concept. It is kind of creepy actually, of the concept of this cult of Jimmy's. Basically, the kids who grew up without adults, especially, they're all psychopathic and all, but what I like is that they gave each one basically a unique personality, and they all feel so distinct from one another, even though none of them gets really that much focus, but still the movie does a really excellent job at making each of them feel like distinct and unique actually. But the biggest focus when it comes to on the Jimmys, though, it focuses again on the leader, Jimmy Crystal, played brilliantly again by Jack O'Connell. Jack O'Connell is really spectacular as Jimmy Crystal, and he makes and he goes to great lengths to make the villain as despicable and as vile as possible. And I really like that. Like, yeah, even though he does also get a tragic and kind of sympathetic and understandable backstory, not only in no way detracts from his villainy, but in no way it actually even hardly makes him tragic. Like, it's not only doesn't make him sympathetic, it's like you almost forget he's tragic because of the horrifying things that he's doing, and because of Jack O'Connell's spectacular performance. When you just look at him, you feel like nothing but disgust and just hope that he gets what's coming to him in the end. And like this cult of Jimmy Crystal, yeah, that was some really fascinating stuff. Although now I have one nitpick actually, but again, this is not modern Hollywood. This is always Hollywood. This is something that Hollywood always misunderstood, so I can look past that, because again, this is not a complaint about modern Hollywood. This is a complaint about what Hollywood actually always has been completely misrepresenting and misunderstanding, because Jimmy Crystal at his cult, he's actually a Satanist and he technically worships the devil, but he has a cross on his neck and it's an inverted cross. But that's also the whole misconception of Hollywood, and not modern misconception, a misconception that's always been there actually and practically got accepted into modern pop culture and all. But the truth is, the inverted cross doesn't actually represent Satan. The inverted cross actually is technically a cross of Saint Peter, because if you study some history and all, Saint Peter was crucified upside down in Rome actually. So yes, the actual inverted cross in Catholicism actually represent the cross of Saint Peter, but because of Hollywood and modern pop culture, it's basically been adopted by Satanists and it's been accepted basically as a symbol of Satan. So yeah, that's why he's wearing an inverted cross, which again, I guess I can look past, because again, this is something you just have to get used to these days at this point. Another thing I really liked is that there was another story going on in this movie, the story of Dr. Ian Kelson, and still played amazingly well by Ralph Fiennes, because yes, like one of my issues with the first movie was that I very much wanted to know a lot more about Dr. Ian Kelson and all, but I kind of felt like, they're probably all gonna explain it in the next movie. And I was so right. They thankfully did, and it was so nice to learn so much more information about him, and not just about him, but also more information about the infected and the zombies, and how basically the more we realize that, because in the old movies we've been led to believe that the zombies are basically at this point just dead, mindless creatures after you, but the more we learn, the more we realize that there is still some humanity in them left, and that's very much reflected in the interesting and fascinating conversations between Dr. Ian Kelson and Samson. And again, I was really happy about it, and I find it really fascinating. So overall, I have to say, 28 years later, The Bone Temple is so far a really good start to the movies of 2026. I think it's better than 28 years later, which says a lot, because again, 28 years later was my favorite movie in the franchise, but now I think The Bone Temple overtook it actually. Oh, and one more small nitpick with the movie. I'm not sure I'm particularly happy that it was filmed with classical cameras this time, because the previous one was again filmed with all iPhones, and yes, it did certainly give a much better screen quality, that's for sure, but at the same time I kind of liked how it was filmed with all iPhones. Kind of give this unique charm to the movie. So if this one was also filmed with the iPhones, well, I don't know, I just think that even though objectively filming it with cameras did certainly give a movie better quality, I just thought it was kind of unique actually how it was filmed with all iPhones. Oh well, can't have everything. And one last thing. Also, this movie does have some creepy horror elements actually, but again, it has nothing to do with the zombies or the infected or anything. No, it all has to do with Jimmy Crystal and his Satanist cult of Jimmys. And the ending actually is in some ways kinda disturbing. But I will not spoil it. But yes, the movie did end on a cliffhanger. I mean, it's to be predictable. It's meant to be a trilogy, but all I will say is that based on the cliffhanger of how this movie ended, I think that the third movie in the franchise is gonna focus on Spike once again, because again, in the first movie Spike was the main character. Here he was basically kind of pushed into this go along and just do this silent role of going along with the cult without much to do in the movie. But yes, I think that based on the cliffhanger, the third movie is gonna focus on him once again, and I'm really hoping for it. I mean, it's his story really, it started with him, it would make sense to end with him. But overall, again, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, I liked it a lot more than I liked the previous movie, which again says a lot because the previous one was my favorite in the franchise. Until The Bone Temple right now. But overall, I think if you like the previous movie, you should see The Bone Temple. If you are into horror stuff and all that, then I think you definitely should see The Bone Temple. But if you once again are expecting basically a zombie action flick from the original movies, then I suggest this might not actually be for you, because again, there are practically no zombies here actually. But overall, I personally really liked 28 years later The Bone Temple, and I say it's a really good start to the movies of 2026. So, thank you folks for checking out this review. Press the like button, please subscribe this channel, and I'll talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you then, bye!